Today I'm going to review what was my first ever professional camera, and actually my first ever camera. This is the ZENZA Bronica, and this is the ETRS version. I've got the ETR version as well. I've got two, because more is better. So this is the older version, this is the newer version. This has the waist level viewfinder currently on it. This has the prism viewfinder currently on it. We're going to talk about these. These are great bits of kit. I'm going to give you a review, explain what they are, and try and work out whether it's the right medium format film camera for you. Now I'm going to get some images to pop up alongside this, and to give you all a bit of context, I work as a commercial photographer, so these are not my main cameras anymore. These are what I use for my fun projects. These are my let's go and do something creative cameras. This one here also has incredible sentimental value to me because it was my first ever camera. I got it in 2010. I paid under £200 for it, cash money, and I got 5 rolls of film for it, thrown in. Which is ludicrous compared to the prices today. These are like £600 each, and rolls of film are like a tenner each. But here we go. This is the ZENZA Bronica ETRsi. This is my camera strap, which is from Hawksmill, England. This is a recent addition, but it's a nice leather strap. I want to talk you through this. Now, this is a medium format camera. It's a 645, which is 6 by 4.5 centimeters, and it is the poor man's Hasselblad. The whole thing is modular. Everything comes apart. So you store your film in here. This is your film. That's the size of your sensor, which is actually a film, but it's the media you record to. It sort of latches on there. Then we have this bit here, which is the dark slide. That stops the film getting exposed when you're changing backs, because with a digital camera, you obviously change your ISO when things change, or you want black and white color. With these, you take the back off, you grab your next back, which has got a different film stock in, and you clunk it on. Now, for me personally, I keep bits of card in the back of mine. This one says empty, but then often it will say like Ilford HP5, so that's the film stock I most commonly use in these cameras. I then have tape top and bottom, and these are just take notes on. So I'll get my pen out and go metered at 800 ISO, high contrast, whatever it may be, so I know how to develop the negative when I get back. It's just good to have these bits of tape on there just to help you, know what's going on. Also, sometimes if you're swapping film backs out, you want to keep notes in here so you know what ISO you've actually metered the rest of the roll of the film at, so you don't mess it up, or all that sort of good stuff. Then we have the bit on here. This is your viewfinder. That's where you see through, and this is completely interchangeable. So you just press this little button here and it comes off, and there's your mirror, and you can change it for many different ones. I only have 2. I've got the waist level, which I particularly like, but it means that left and right are back to front and side here. Or you have the viewfinder like this, which has got a mirror prism in it, which corrects all of that and makes it actually look exactly as it should as in a DSLR. So it's kind of much more like it's much easier to shoot portrait mode with this one as well. You just flip it round, whereas if you've never done this before, shooting with one of these in portrait mode, it's kind of a bit of a, and it's back to front, and it's a nightmare. This is landscape shooting only, really, unless your brain is wired so well you can play the accordion. So yeah, that's the next part. And then of course the lens is interchangeable, as are most camera lenses. And there's 2 different series of lenses for this, which is important to note, because not all Mamiya lenses are made equally. This is the MC, and this is the not so good series. So these ones here I use only for black and white, and only between like f8 and f11 if I want to get decent sharpness. For black and white film, especially the 400 speed grainy film or the Ilford non-delta versions, Kodak Tri-X for example, that sort of stuff as well, they're fine. They resolve absolutely enough detail. Now the only colour film I shoot is Ektar, because that's the only colour film I really like, and it's not good enough for shooting on Ektar film. It just sort of, there's no point for me personally. But the other series of lenses they make have these green rings on them, and this is called an E2 lens. This is the 75mm, which is like a 50mm equivalent field of view, but still with 70mm like characteristics, as it were, which is one of the joys of medium format. These are razor sharp. These are brilliant, but they're more expensive. So this one here is the only lens I use for colour film, but then for black and white, I've got this one here, which is my, what we got here, 150mm 3.5 MC. Soft, it's gooey, it's kind of, it gives you that classic old school look. And then my favourite lens is my 50mm lens, which is, it's just nice to use. Now the camera itself has shutter speeds from 8 seconds, I believe, 8 seconds to 500th of a second, and it runs on a battery back here which fires the leaf shutter. Now a leaf shutter means that at every single shutter speed, including 500th, the flash will synchronize with it without having to do high-speed flash. You don't need a high-speed flash. It'll just synchronize because the shutter goes like this, boop, boop, rather than up and down, getting that curtain drag. Very useful. When the battery goes flat, it automatically goes to 500th of a second. I don't know why, what a bad decision, but that's what it is. So if you're shooting outside at 125th and your battery dies, you're 2 stops underexposed. If you're shooting with flash in a studio and your battery dies, it doesn't really matter because the flash will keep it exposed well. You might notice some like additional shadow detail disappearing, but it's okay. Now, I still use this camera today regularly. This camera comes pretty much everywhere with me recently, and that's not something I've always done. I've not been I carry a camera with me. I don't have a daily carry, but this has become it, and it's a bit big, so it has to live inside my old Billingham bag, which I've had for almost as long as the camera. So these two kind of, they marry up together. Now, in terms of film stocks that I use nowadays, there are 3, and with all things in my photography, especially my commercial world, I like to keep things simple. So we have one color film, which is XR100. I know what you're thinking. What if it's dark and you need 400 speed film? I just don't take the picture. It's not my job. This is just fun times. And Kodak XR, it's as close as I could find without going slidey filmy to Kodachrome, and I loved Kodachrome. I shot Kodachrome. I shot some of the last rolls of Kodachrome, and they went to, was it Dwayne's? They went over to the States to get developed. I've got the slides still. They're beautiful slides. But yeah, this is about as Kodachrome as I can get today. It also scans beautifully, and I do not print color because it gives you a migraine. It's so hard to do. I don't know why anyone would want to, but I scan this back here on my 5DSR 100mm macro planner by Zeiss, and I've got a light box and a negative holder. When I'm shooting still life in the studio, I use, which one we're looking at? Here we go. Ilford HP4 Plus, which is a low speed film. It's traditional grain. It looks like black and white film. It's very, very nice. I like this a lot. Very good bit of film. And for my car park project, which is where every time I go to a high-rise multi-story car park, I take pictures of the views. I use this stuff here, which is Ilford HP5, which is like the jack of all trades. It's a Swiss Army knife of film. And this is great. I normally rate it at 800. Develop it for about 9 minutes in the Ilford developer, which I think is called HC, Ilford HC, something like that. Anyway, and then I scan these in as well. I do print these as well. I do print black and white. I like a black and white print. But predominantly, I scan them. I enjoy scanning as well. So it's all good. Now, in terms of getting into film, and for anyone asks who knows about these cameras, this here, I lost the winder. My friend 3D printed me this to wind it because an actual winder was like £100. And it is, no, not paying that. But for those who want one of these cameras, these are brilliant. They are a great step into medium format, and especially like high quality optic medium format without breaking the bank. Obviously, a Hasselblad is considerably better, but who can afford that? Like really, like as a hobbyist, it's a lot of money to put out there. I nearly bought a Hasselblad, but only because I was going to get a digital back for it as well and use it professionally, commercially. But then I bought this Cambo, which is like a bellows camera for my commercial work instead. But yeah, these are brilliant, and I love mine. It's the only bit of kit in the studio that I have a sentimental like attachment to or any sort of love toward, which is now starting to sound a bit eerie. But it would be these ZENZA Bronicas. I really love them. They are the reason I have a photography career today. If it wasn't for me getting one of these, I wouldn't have learnt as quickly, I don't think, because when I was shooting film, everyone else was on digital, but I was still using flash. I was still shooting with lighting, and I just learnt how to do it so quickly compared to those shooting on digital who just took shots until it looked right. I had to know what it looked right. I had to understand guide numbers, inverse square law, flash, everything. I had to understand it in such a way, and this really helped me do that. And you know, being able to walk into a room, especially in my early days, I used to be a wedding photographer, which is kind of like the thing you don't tell people about, but in those wedding days when I was shooting on film, and I shot on film for a long time for weddings, even after I'd got digital cameras, I could still walk into a room and go, right, we're going to have 800 speed film in here. We're going to bounce this flash at this power off this ceiling at this distance and have a shutter speed at a 60th and it'll expose correctly. And I always knew how to do that. And that has been a great asset throughout my career, whereas a lot of people now, they take a shot, look at the back, take a shot, look at the back. And yes, they get there, which is great, but they don't know why or how. And like when it goes wrong, understanding this why and this how that shooting with a film camera has allowed me to do is so useful. You know, knowing where to place lights, knowing where to put it all comes down to me having shot film at the start of my career, I believe. And this is not smart. I'm back in my day, because now obviously 2010 was not back in the day. Digital, the 5D Mark I was already out. I think the 5D Mark II was on its way. And I was still shooting with these just from a financial point of view. I couldn't afford anything else. And film back then was cheap, like really cheap. And film cameras were cheap. So it was like a great way into the profession. And as I worked a lot with artists and musicians and celebrities, no one minded. Like, it was fine. I turned up to a shoot with a couple of these and everyone was good about it. I developed it myself that day in my bathroom, scanned it myself that day. There was no delay in workflow. The only thing was they couldn't see the images as we were taking them. But I don't actually remember anyone asking for them back then. Maybe things are different now, but back in 2010, I shot on this. Nobody batted an eyelid. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this look at this camera. If you want to know more about it, let me know. And I'll make those videos. Maybe we'll do a shoot together with these and I'll show you how I shoot with them. Let me know in the comments below. See you all soon. Bye-bye.